can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
We're going to jump up and down on the last nerve today.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
Are we nerve jumpers today? What are we talking about today?
Nerve jumpers. Hit me with your best shot. Bam.
What are we diving off into?
Dealing with the petty demands of a narcissist. And I know we don't like to always use that word. I like to use that word. You don't always like. You always say toxic. You always say the person who is wounded. The person, but I'm gonna come right out and say it. They're malignant or sociopathic narcissist that can cause a lot of issues. And we've got some different things, some resources that we've pulled to give you some definitions of what we're talking about. Now, I'm not going to say that the narcissist doesn't dip their toe in the water of borderline personality or histrionic or any of those other things, which I might say, can you tell us what this is, Teri? Because you can. But I'm just going to point out is that even after you think a relationship with one of these people is over, they're like these little tentacles that go, and there's a little thing that will go out and go, well, they'll have to call me now. You know, or the things like, well, I have this and they'll have to come get it. It's very weird, almost stalkerish behavior. So I just wanted to open that can of worms. And for you guys who listen, maybe you've had issues like this where you go, it's like trying to get away from somebody who's literally got like those sticky traps. And you're trying to get away from one of those sticky traps.
Like a spider sticky trap.
Yes. Yes. You know, I feel like I'm the little mouse with one little toe that said, I just wanted cheese. I just wanted some cheese. You had some cooking oil, please. Let go of my toe. Anyway.
So, what direction we going in?
Well, first of all, we got Elizabeth who just joined us. And I have not seen this girl in forever. Carolyn Swilly is with us. Ain't that the truth? And Carolyn has been through it. She's been through some of those things. Elizabeth kicks things off with my ex-husband called me at work 15 years after our divorce. 15 years. This is what I'm talking about. Shook me to my core for days. Just hearing his voice made me cringe. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Carolyn, I love you. I'm glad that you're here. Well, let's open this can of worms. Why does these people, why do they have to have some little way of pulling that thread? Why?
Depends on where they're coming from psychologically, mentally, emotionally, from a trauma place. Depends on where they're coming from there. I think for most individuals, it is a sense of control, whether it's covert control, meaning the tentacle is still wrapped around, overt control, meaning the tentacle is still wrapped around, or covert control, meaning I'm just going to ghost you and I'm not going to answer your calls or your emails or anything like that, you know, because I know you're asking a question and I have the answer and I'm just not, because I don't have to, which for the record is completely responsible and mature.
Absolutely.
At least for a 15-year-old, but there's that.
Yeah, it's true. I always find that there is this personality type that will go, I know that when you were here, you brought this and you've owned this piece of property. You've owned, like, for instance, let's say it's, you know, for a water trough. I know that you had this before you met me because you've had horses for a long time. So, but I want the water trough. I want the water trough. And I go, well, you're moving into an apartment, but okay, whatever. You know, the pettiness of when you're pulling out the tentacles of the stuff and you're kind of going, okay, we're just moving on. We're going to be grown-ups. it's very difficult for a certain personality type to be a grown-up because they have to perceive a win.
Well, and that's unfortunate because I think for human tendencies, everyone likes to win, I guess. I don't know. My family might say I'm just the opposite. I can get up in the middle of a Lifetime movie and walk away. I don't care what the ending is. I can get up in the middle of a game of Monopoly and go, I don't care, and I truly don't. I'm not in that's not winning for me is not, winning feels a little childish. So reconciliation, not necessarily when you are in a place where, and I mean reconciliation in communication, and again, focusing more on how we can handle those situations more than the people that cause those situations. Because the truth of it is, the more that people in any situation, if you're giving that person energy, you're feeding that whatever that is. If it's a water trough, then, they want the water trough, and I've had people say to me, it's just material things, I'll let them have it. I'll give them what they want. I'll whatever. And for some people that works. And for other people, their possessions are important to them because they come from a place where there's a memory or there's something, and they just don't, it's not about winning and losing. It's about the cost of being in the relationship with an unwell person.
Oh, yeah.
And understanding that unwell person can mirror the very thing you're saying and say the same stuff to other people about you. So it's really, you just have to know where you stand in your truth. And, if it's something, if you don't need the water trough, give them the damn water trough, and if the water trough is important to you, then, try to have a communication, a reconciliation and communication to where you can, come to peace. Sometimes there is no coming to peace.
That's the thing to me. That's always seemed like a win is peace, grown up resolution, but that is not always the thing that we get as closure. Don't
Look
let
at you. You've got like, we got a PowerPoint show today. Okay.
I do. This is from someone who I watched a lot of, and Lisa A. Romano. She has a lot of great resources on YouTube. Don't let narcissists pull you into their petty mind games. When you refuse to engage with a narcissist, you win. Game over. Whew. I like that. It's very, very concise. It's like, and what's so crazy is there a class that these people can go to because they all are so similar how they handle things that it's like they all went to school to figure out how to manipulate this way because it's so across the board. It's crazy.
Well, I don't know if there's a class, but I think that there are certain survival skills that people use, and I think that they show up. I think manipulation is a standard survival skill. Lying is a standard survival skill. Gaslighting, not a standard survival skill, but it makes a great accessory for someone who's manipulating. I always go back to that side about I don't really believe, well, I can't say I don't believe. I do believe that I do believe that more people in our world are considered, that the word that's thrown around, the narcissism, I believe that there's more people in our world that are considered that because of mislabeling, because it's just become the buzzword. That's why I often will say unwell or unhappy or toxic or, batshit crazy. I mean, there's different things that we can say. But there is a pattern to it. And I think learning how to take care of yourself in that situation, because at any moment, anyone that you're dealing with that can be cast out and labeled as a narcissist, as I said earlier, they can spin that back around and mirror it to you, and you can look like the narcissist. Like when you say, when you say they're trying to get information from you, and so they're reeling you back in. I'm in a situation right now where I'm trying to get information from someone, and they're not giving that information. They're not confirming, and it's a legal matter. So I need confirmation in order for it to be able to be on the up and up and be responsible and be mature. But I'm not getting that because it's that I don't have to answer you. And so that could be spun around. You know, look at her. She just keeps reaching out and reaching out and reaching out, trying to snare me back in. No, I just need a freaking confirmation. That's all I need. Confirmation.
That's it.
And it'll come one way or the other. It'll either come through an email, through a text, or through legal services. It'll one way or another, it'll come. But, you know, that's the thing that, you know, and it doesn't have to be that way. But unfortunately, when we're in a place where we feel like we have to win, sometimes, you know, you have to be able to assess and just go, it's not about a win. It's peace of mind. There's no win in the world that is big enough to make you trade off your peace of mind. Not a win in the world.
Amen. Elizabeth says, my win was walking out the door and leaving every single thing that was mine, including my car. I took a suitcase of clothes. I wanted nothing and absolutely zero time in the same space with him. I don't understand the mind of someone who needs to win over another. See, I think that's how you tell the difference in the different people types, is the people who have to win, the people who don't care.
Well, okay. So people who generally have to win, I believe that's from a wounded place. I believe that that's from an acknowledgement place. It's from a wounded place. It's from that place. I need to be acknowledged. I need to be respected. I need to be appreciated. And that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how we go about in our levels of communication to do that.
You are much better than I am.
Well, some would not agree with you.
I want my Yosemite Sam cat pistols. Pap, pap, pap.
Yeah, but see, all that does is it keeps you stirred up internally.
It does.
It keeps you stirred up. You're like, darn it. But it does. It just keeps you stirred up internally. And at the end of the day, you know, it really is that I do really genuinely want the best for everybody. Hands down. And whether people, you know, that's a hard sell for people to believe sometimes because they don't want that and they can't imagine anyone else does want that. And then some people are just still in their space and they're like, I'm not over it. So I'm still pissed. And that's okay too. People have to take whatever time they have to take. But like Elizabeth says, there's sometimes when that win for a person is just being able to say, I choose not to do this anymore. That doesn't mean that I don't care. It doesn't mean that I don't love. It doesn't mean that I don't want to throat punch. Like seriously, everybody has their own thing, right?
Yep.
Choosing not to participate anymore from a balanced, well-centered place is one of the best gifts you can give yourself.
Amen. Amen. Carolyn says, I'd like to see an interview with a self-admitted narcissist. Okay, you will never see that. You know why? Because narcissists don't admit that that's what they are. That's not going to happen as a general rule.
Well, there's some really interesting folks that are on Instagram who they're diagnosed. And diagnosing narcissism and borderline personality is really hard to do. I don't do it. I'm not that level of professional. So, but there are some people out there who have been diagnosed with narcissism, and they do their Instagram posts, but they do it because they are doing their work to learn how to reprogram their brain. And they also understand that there's a level that they will never get to. And they actually offer a lot of really great insight into how their brain works and how to either work with their brain, which doesn't mean capitulating and being a victim to them, but like how to stand your ground in the midst of being in a work, an intimate, a parental, a child, whatever it is, narcissistic relationship.
Whew, my goodness. Oh, Suzanne is back. She
Hey,
back.
Suzanne.
Angie is with us today. Hi, Angie. Congratulations on the wedding. Her daughter got married this weekend.
Nice.
Michelle is with us.
Hey, Michelle.
I chose peace years ago. Eventually, you will reap what you have sown. And that's true. We do. And for some people, it doesn't happen quick enough in the world. You know, I would like for some people to reap some benefits that they have sown. But it doesn't work on my clock. I'm not as evolved as you, Teri.
I love the fact you're just like, and I'm just like,
no.
Yeah.
Elizabeth says, big difference between self-centered, egotistical, and narcissism. There's true. And, you know, I mean, I work in the entertainment industry a lot, and you got to be a certain amount to you have to have an ego to be able to do what you do, to keep you going, fueled, because when you're on a stage, people will say the most cruel, awful, terrible things, and you've got to have enough wherewithal to go, okay, knock yourself out, but I got to get on stage. That's a certain personality type that can do that. They've got steel will, but we're not talking about that.
But I also think we give too much power to a person who has narcissistic characteristics. I think we give them too much power. We give them too much attention. We give them too much of our peace of mind. We give them, we can give them too much of our peace of mind. We can give them too much of our soul. We can share too much of our light with them. And I think that, the phrase narcissism or narcissistic personality or narcissistic, disorders, that comes with such a visceral punch to it that at the very sheer word, when people say narcissism, suddenly there's this ominous energy that feels like it's just evil and it's going to win all. And for me, when I hear that word, I think of 13, 14, 15-year-old bully. That's what I think of. I don't think they're all that scary. I think they're full of shit. I do. I think they're wounded.
Yeah.
I think they're wounded. And my heart goes out to anyone who is wounded. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not talking about people who are born unable to empathize, and that's more of a sociopath. And that's, I think, where the people get so, it's kind of the mixing bowl, because everybody goes narcissist and they throw it all together. And I'm just like, okay, so if you're not really doing your work to figure out what you're talking about, like you got to know that there are some people who are sociopaths, and there are some people who are wounded. And there is a boatload of people that fall in the middle of that, somewhere on that.
Yeah, it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum. There's several things, and we're learning. But psychopath is at the far end, and psychopath is when it goes. And you and I've got to say, you got to be careful, because you got to know what you're dealing with, and you start looking at the Black Widow personality and those things, because those are real. And those are out there, and you just have to kind of know what you're dealing with. So if you're in a situation like that, we don't know you. So you have to do your own work to figure out where you are on that. I loved this one. I found it's the narcissistblog.online. 5 micro narcissistic tendencies you shouldn't ignore. Now, these were just some things that I paid attention, like you said, lack of empathy, making put downs and insults, demanding unreasonable favors. I know this is the biggest day of your work career, but I need you to go pick up the dog at the vet. Needing to be the center of attention. Taking advantage of people's kindness. Well, they want to help me. So I know it's really unreasonable, but they really want to do this for me. So let them do it. People, there are so many things that are out there that are just little micro tendencies just to pay attention to. And even if you have those tendencies, that's the other thing to pay attention to.
Well, I think again, because there's a spectrum, I think that lots of people have those tendencies. People that want to feel loved and belong, they enjoy it when people do things for them and want to do things for them. Now, somebody could look at them and go, oh my God, they're a narcissist. But there's a difference. And I think too, there's a difference in how unwell people show up in private versus how they show up in public. There's a big difference there. And that's the thing, is that oftentimes when you're with someone unwell, you feel like you're losing your mind because they don't show up that way for other people. So other people don't know, they don't see that side of them. And it can be really challenging, because cognitive dissonance, it can be really challenging to convince or try to even share with someone that someone is showing up in a different way. Now, their family members, the people closest to them, they know. They know.
Oh
But
yeah,
oftentimes family members won't even share because of the familial bond or because of retaliation.
they don't want to share because they don't want them to move back home. I mean, sorry.
Well,
Did I say that?
if it's a child or a parent, yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going I'm not going to rock this boat. They gone. It's like, sorry, you took over the payments. Bye-bye. This one I thought was interesting. This is whether it's a woman or man, learn their patterns, check your expectations, limit your interactions, keep things superficial. Don't fall for their act. Don't feed into their need for validation. Don't threaten their self-esteem. That was a big one. Refuse to compete with her. Try to find win-win solutions. Most importantly, keep your cool. A lot of those things that you find yourself in a situation with an unwell person. See how much I've come in this conversation. They will push to get a reaction, then blame you for the reaction that you have. See, I told you you were whatever. So being able to, and the phrase that's used a lot, and I hear it, is gray rock.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine just left, and she called her van, which was gray, she called it the Gray Rock Express, as she was pulling out of the driveway, which I thought was brilliant. But there are those tendencies. If they perceive that you are competing with them, it causes an issue. But everything to that personality type is a competition. Everything, even down to the way you open a can of soup and boil it and make it, it's just like, it's weird, because to the other personality type, they don't compete as a general rule. They just,
But that's the perfect combination. That's what attracts. That's the puzzle, the connecting of the puzzle. Because not that compassionate people can't be with compassionate people, but people who are unwell typically don't want to be with other unwell people. That's no fun.
There you are. I knew that was coming.
It's no fun.
Yeah. There's no challenge, right?
And it's too much of a competition. Whereas you can take two people that are compassionate, empathetic, and you can put them together. And now if they're codependent, that's a different ballgame. The compassionate and empathetic, they can get along in this world, and they can navigate the world easily. You put two people who need validation together all the time, you will have a cat fight or a dog fight or cat and dog fight because one person can't, because they're constantly one-upping the other person's needs.
The one-upping stuff.
It doesn't work. So
You're right.
So someone who needs that validation will seek out someone who is typically good at validating. But if that person that's typically good at validating or is compassionate or is supportive isn't getting their cup filled by their coworker, their boss, their partner, their whatever, then they don't have anything to give after a while. And when you don't have anything to give after a while, then that person that needs that validation is done with you because you don't offer them anything.
Wow. Elizabeth says, like I tell a friend often, I need me some Jesus most days. I want the best for everyone, but I know that I don't. It's true. It's true. Alicia says, one of the most important topics, Devon, we have needed to spotlight this issue since the beginning of time. I think we use the term narcissism wasn't even in the psychology, the desk reference. I don't know what they call that book, but it has all
DSM.
that thing. And it literally has all of the disorders and everything. Well, it wasn't until very recently that narcissism was even in there. Narcissist personality disorder. And then on the spectrum, narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, and those things going into that. It wasn't even listed until recently.
Well, and one of the reasons it's not listed is because there's an estimated, and I'll get the number wrong. I'll have to Google it to I've got it somewhere on my computer, but out of the population of people walking this earth, there is an estimated amount of, I think it's 19% are undiagnosed with some mental personality disorder, whether it's bipolar, whether it's histrionic narcissism, whether it's covert, overt, malignant, narcissism, and then, the borderline personality disorders and the anxious attachment borderline person. There's so many of them. And the danger that comes in there is that people Google and then they read a headline and then they run around diagnosing everybody. And it's like, okay, that's really not how it's done. First and foremost, a true narcissist can stump the best of therapists and counselors out there.
Oh,
because they're that good.
They are.
But I always say, if you Windex your goggle lens real good, you can spot that bullshit. Mm-hmm. And if you've had it in your life, you can absolutely spot it.
Oh, absolutely.
And they typically will do therapy a handful of times, surface. And then once they get down into the deeper well, once it's more than dipping your toe, they're out.
Yeah. Elizabeth says, in my experience, my ex-husband showed up like a fabulous charmer in public. He was 180 in private, and no one could understand why I'd leave. Now that's huge. Mm-hmm. They can be incredibly charming, and that's how you get fooled at first. They are one way, and they might even, I just spoke with someone who called and said for the first 2 years, it was the most amazing thing they'd ever found. And I said, well, what was the magic turning point? Is that when the funds were liquid together, when they had access, as soon as there was access to what my finances, then it changed. As soon as they signed the house over, as soon as there was a marriage that would have a lot of repercussion. There's the tipping point from the love bubble, pink bubble, the love bombing, I'm going to get you, until they get you finally where you can't get out easily.
But usually that is such a glacial pace that people don't.
Oh, that's a great way to put that.
It happens it's not that it happens overnight. It feels like it happens overnight. In real time, it's like, what the hell just happened? But when you sit back and you go, okay, let me get out of this immediate emotion and let me just really do a lost timeline. My clients know what those are. Do a history lost timeline. It is heartbreaking to see just how much you actually knew it was coming, but you didn't want it to come because you loved them and you wanted them to love you. But you do that timeline and you're going, damn.
I knew it.
Mm-hmm. Some level of my consciousness knew it. Mm-hmm. So then we have to be accountability. We have to be accountable when we go, I never saw it coming. I said that. I walked around for months going, I never saw it coming. When it came my way. But then I did my lost timeline and I went, well, oh shit. I didn't want to see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
But it never hit. I didn't want to see it coming. And here's the thing. It never hit itself.
Mm-hmm.
It never hit itself.
Right there in plain sight.
Right there in plain sight.
And that's where when you go to Teri and she says, we're going to discover the lost timeline. And her famous phrase, this might sting a little. What is your part that you play? Because the part that you play is the only part you can change. Now, here's the deal. You will never, ever in the history of all time will you change a narcissist. But you can change you. You can change your position where you are, or as Beth Brown says, divorced it. That is. But Beth, here's the deal. I love you, Beth. I think that's great. But there's so many people who are stuck in situations. It's not as easy as that. Some people are still co-parenting with that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a parental figure, you're still having Thanksgiving dinner with that. You're still there's a lot of situations. If you are with a job and you can't just walk tomorrow and you've got this kind of stuff, those work relationships, sometimes you're stuck in a situation for a little while, and to deal with the petty demands is not challenging and realizing, and here's a big thing for me. There's this old joke when the father-in-law is talking to his son-in-law and the son-in-law is like, but this is right. And she just does this and she does this and she's wrong. And he says, son, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? In the midst of, you might know that it's time to make your exit and you're making plans and everything, but you don't have to win the argument. You don't have that closure. You don't need to have it. If you can let go of that expectation of getting closure and having them act like a mature adult and go, you're right. Goodbye. We'll shake hands. Here's your stuff. Here's my stuff. Let's go. Or you leave an employer and you go, I have to leave. And you're very grown up about it. And they go, get your stuff and leave. Don't need your 2 weeks notice. Get out. You got to let yourself go from here's how I want it to be.
Right. And you also have to be willing to look at how individuals are showing up in those moments. Now, we don't always show up our best. Even the healthiest of people can be snatched out of their healthy back into unhealthy in a heartbeat.
It's easy. Mm-hmm.
We can know. We can know, and we can always revert back. It is human nature to do that when we feel unsafe, when we feel scared, when we feel triggered. That's a human response. It's different when we are trying to navigate our peace of mind. I don't care how much someone says they care about you, how much they value you, how much they appreciate you, how much they love you. This could be work, this could be personal, it could be family, it could be whatever. I don't care how much somebody says that. Words are fleeting. It really comes with someone's ability to show up. And
amen to the hallelujah.
If they can't show up, then they have to be willing to look at why they can't show up. And if they're not willing to look at why they can't show up, then you have to decide if you want to continue spending your time in this job, in this relationship, in this family of origin, whatever. And some people will say, well, that's an awful selfish thing to do. But there's no reason why people can't be civil. It's a choice not to. Now, I'm not saying if you're going toe to toe with someone who is unwell that you need to sit there and, concede to everything that they say to be civil. I'm saying, maybe you have to get your stuff and you have to go.
You can't just passively wait for something to happen, because as long as you are there, it's going to continue to simmer. And as long as they're getting their supply filled by your passiveness, they're going to stay and keep you in that place. Lisa Biles Thomas joins us. Hi, Lisa. She and her husband Art have a great show on finances that you can find them on Facebook. I just love them. And Joyce is here. Joyce says, sorry that I'm late, girls. Working, always go back and listen to y'all. Well, that brings us to the end of a broadcast day. And if you were watching, and this is an ongoing thing as we go into, we're going to have some heated topics going into the holidays, because that's when it all heats up. Just, it's what it is. So we're going to bring up some of these. If you guys have something you want to talk about, you'd like us to cover, you can send it devonoday@gmail.com. And I'm going to tell you something. If you have not done your own work, and you've been involved with someone who is toxic, that has torn you down, you are not going to get better by spending the rest of your life blaming that person. But if you do your work, if you start doing your work, and how to do that, I'm going to tell you, call Teri Pugh. Just get in touch with Teri. That's the truth.
You. Well, I'll tell you the image or the visual, because my head works in metaphors and analogies, and the image and the visual of what it looks and feels like to be in a relationship with someone that's unwell. Those log rolling contests when people walk out on the log and then they're like mirroring constantly the other person, and they're going fast and they're going slow, and they're trying to trip the other person up to toss them off the log. Mm-hmm. That is very much how being in an unwell situation with someone can feel, So you got to take care of yourself first and foremost. And people are going to always show up. And sometimes you're going to be that person. Sometimes you're going to be the person that shows up and you're just a butt. And then there's going to be other people that are going to show up, and they're going to be on a different end of that spectrum, that butt spectrum, and they're going to show up a little differently. But the most important thing that you take away from it is not that you're a victim, and it's not that they owe you anything. They don't owe you squat. They don't owe you squat. It is up to you to advocate for your own peace of mind, your own well-being, your own happiness. And sometimes you're going to get lucky and they're going to create an exit plan. And sometimes you're going to be the one that's going to be slapped with the exit plan. You have to do your work to find out your balance in that. Mm-hmm. And know that above all else, show up every day being the best version of you. Communicate effectively. Communicate openly. Give yourself some self-kindness and some self-love. Show up for yourself.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Well, you guys, we're going to call it at the end of a broadcast day. And thank you for being with us. Follow, subscribe, and share what you find here. If you watch later, put a hashtag replay, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, we are here. And if you are looking for, and this has come up lately, people said we would like to have some podcasts that we can listen to. If that is something that you are interested in, let us know. Leave a comment and let us know if that's something that you would like, an extended version of what we do here. We can definitely do that. We have the capability.
We have the capability. And also we have an event coming up.
We do. And you guys are invited.
We have an event coming up December the 6th. I think that's a Wednesday, right? Is that a Wednesday?
Wednesday night, church night.
6 to 7:30. And it's a Santa's Helper, stocking stuffer, shindigs and shenanigans. I have for several years now hosted at my home a shindigs and shenanigans. I supply the stockings. There's a number of things supplied, hygiene, all this kind of,
hot hands,
hot hands, all that. And what we do is we get together. We'll do it this year at my office. But we're going to get together and people show up. You can drop in if you want to, have a snack with us, get a hug.
Mm-hmm. She's still there. She's just buffering. We will have some light noshes. So if you'd like to join us, it's at Teri's office. You can message me if you need directions or all that kind of stuff. And it is December 6th and it starts at 6 o'clock. So you can come in if you want to bring some. Oh, good. Elizabeth says Liz and I will be there on the 6th. I mean, of course you are. Of course you are. Hello, Lisa Richard and Angie. I wish you lived closer too, but when you're in town, we'll have to get together and do something just because you are in town. Thank you, Michelle. I'm glad that you were here with us. I'm going to close things out. Be safe, be kind, and know that we love you and we appreciate you being here. And I'm going to say it for Teri. Increase the peace, everyone. Bye.